Hi there, this is Blackie Lawless from W.A.S.P, and you're watching Art Uber Alles. You know, for the longest time, when you and I spoke the first time, everybody asked the question, what took so long for you guys to get here? I told everybody then, I says, we would have been here a long time ago. There was no promoters that believed in us. I don't know what it was, they just didn't think that we could sell tickets here. And we came here and we played Rock Wave the first time. We destroyed that place that night and made a lot of believers here. And we've had a love affair with this place ever since. And I see no end to it, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't want to sound like everybody else, but I'm going to tell you the honest truth. This is one of the places we really love to come to because, I mean, today we were doing all the tour stuff at the Parthenon and all that. You know, I haven't been up there for 5 years, so, you know, we went and did all that again today. I don't think you guys, because you live here, I don't think you appreciate what you have here. And as a tourist, we come here because there's so much world history. This is the cradle of civilization is right here. I mean, I was standing there today and I'm looking up, you know, at those columns and I'm thinking, man, oh man, oh man, the stuff that must have gone on in here this is hairy, hairy stuff, you know. But because you live here, you probably take it for granted. We come here, there's a beauty that maybe you don't see. You know, you have that Aegean blue that's everywhere around here. I know it's the country symbol and it's the color and all this stuff, but there's something really special about this, and we fell in love with this place when we played Rock Wave the first time. You know, as long as the people here will have us, we will keep coming back. Okay, but W.A.S.P in the 90s actually started as W.A.S.P in the 80s, because by the time we had got to Headless Children, which came out in '89, we had already radically changed as a band, because we had done the first 3 records. You know, we had been on the road for 3 years. We did a record and a tour and a record and a tour and a record and a tour, and we didn't know who we were anymore. I mean, we were really pretty punchy at that point, you know. We didn't know what our identity was. Unless you take some time to pull back and discover who you are again, you don't know who you are, because the road can make you crazy after a while. You lose your identity. And we went away to make Headless Children, which took 2 years. And when EMI originally heard the demos for it, they didn't like it. They said, this does not sound like W.A.S.P. It does not sound like what's going on in the market right now with other bands and things like that. And we said, well, we don't care. This is who we are right now, and this is what we want to do. And they really didn't want us to do, well, the record's release ends up becoming the biggest selling record we ever had. And then EMI's real happy about that, you know. And then that opened the door for what the 90s would become, which I went away after Headless Children for over 2 years to make what would become the Crimson Idol. And the Crimson Idol was exactly the same way. When they heard the early demos of it, they did not like it. They said, no, this is not what you should be doing. You should be making Headless Part 2. I go, no, this is not what I want to do. This is where I want to go. And they didn't believe in that record. And when the record was first released, it exploded too. You know, so they were all happy again after that. So really, those 2 records set the table for what we would become as a band. And still, a lot of that late 80s, early 90s is probably the most recognizable portion of who we are as a band even now. Because without those records, you and I wouldn't be sitting here talking right now. Any band, you go back and you look at any band's career, their early records may be great, but it's never enough to sustain them. You have to see growth in a band. For a band, I mean, you know, any band can last 5 years, but to last 10 years, 20 years, you cannot do that on just 1 or 2 records. You have to have steady music throughout the whole period of it. And you also have to have growth periods. And Headless and the Crimson Idol were tremendous growth periods for us. music driven by passion. You know, everybody says that the last record that we just did, which is Babylon, and the record before that, Dominator, are two of the best we've ever made. And it's interesting because I look at the audience now, and it looks like it did in 1984. It's all 17, 18, 19-year-olds out there again. And that's really strange because it's almost like being in like the Twilight Zone, you know, because it's like, you know, I look at the audience and I'm still in 1984 all over again. I mean, it's an amazing thing. It really is. Because most artists never get it one time. But to now have it come back around again is just absolutely amazing. And it's not just us. I mean, there's probably maybe 20, 25 bands that came from that era that have been able to survive and do well. But they are representative of really what the genre of this music is all about. And we're just fortunate enough to be one of those bands.
When you finished your album, you just already have started. Was it true? I mean, how was it with the Babylon album?
Well, it really started about a year ago because I was listening to some of the leaders in the EU over in Brussels. They were talking about what they were calling a global financial crisis.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that anytime politicians use the word crisis, it's usually an excuse to take the freedom away from people somehow, some way. So I'm listening to these men talk. And I heard one of them say that maybe they thought it was time for a one-world government. And then I heard another one say, well, maybe it's now time for a one-world currency, money. And then the one that really got me was, I heard one say, they believed by the year 2017 that they could have all the people in Europe microchipped. You know what that means, right?
Yes.
I mean, this is maybe the beginnings of 666, the Antichrist. I don't know. But this is a very, very scary thing. I went back and I did a very detailed study of the book of Revelation in the Bible. And I was astonished as to how accurate the prophecy in the Bible was in comparison to what these men were saying. And I thought to myself, do these men not really understand what they're saying? And I say that to say this, that 20 years ago when I wrote The Headless Children, there's a lyric in the song that says, 4 horsemen sit high up in the saddle and waiting and ride the bloody trail and no return. And I listened to these men talk and I thought, this is 20 years later. Are we now closer to that potential Armageddon than we were then? Elections have consequences. And it doesn't matter where you live. All elections have consequences. And I think we believe sometimes that we as individuals have very little power, don't have much power. I believe, and I'm starting to see in America now, we have more power than we think we have. Because when enough people get together, I mean, the history of this country shows what can happen when enough people say enough. And, you know, we all have to take responsibility for ourselves, because if we do not take that responsibility will be taken from us. 3 weeks ago in Washington, D.C., 100,000 people gathered in front of the White House to protest Obama. I never thought I would see anything like that in my lifetime. And it's fantastic to see what people can do when enough people come together and create one voice. It's terrific.
How do you think the things have changed since you wrote these songs, I Want to Be Somebody or stuff like that? I mean, for young people and for the whole planet, for your character of the song, for yourself?
Well, you know, I don't know. The one thing I do know is that art, real art, whether it's music or movies or paintings, all art is designed to make you think. I discovered just 2 or 3 years ago that I kept writing the same song over and over and over again. And it started with the first album, I Want to Be Somebody.
lyrics wise.
Yeah. And I didn't realize, I kept asking that question on every album. And I only realized it just a couple of years ago. You know, so it's interesting, you know, I was asking that question then, I'm still asking that question now. And I don't think it's just me, I think it's everybody who listens to it. I think that's what, you know, we're all on that journey in life, and we're all trying to figure out where we're going.
Thank you much. I'm afraid our time is running out. Thank you very much.
We have a show to do.
Hi there, it's Nico from radio station FM 1025 Rock Festval. You've been there a few times, I've seen you. It's a cool city, Greece. My question concerns your set list. I read in a recent statement that you won't play Animal, Fuck Like a Beast due to your religious beliefs or thoughts. I wanted to know if this is true, and what has made you turn into deciding this, and why your latest albums are more of a concept for with religion and stuff like that. You used to do such stuff in the past.
Well, you're wanting to do your own interview right now. I mean, that's a really lengthy question. I'll try to answer it short. I was born again when I was 11. And I went for a long time after that where I did my own thing. I went for 20 years. And I left the church. I went as far away as you could go. I studied the occult for 3 years. I practiced it. And I left the occult after 3 years because I realized that I had swapped one organized religion for another organized religion. And so I went for 20 years after that, and I thought I was mad at God. And I realized after a while, I was not mad at God, I was mad at man for the indoctrination that I had received. And so when I finally got over all the things that I had been taught as a kid, I started to seek my own answers. And when I started to seek my own answers, that's when I started returning to my faith. So the reason I stopped playing that song is I realized that a lot of times that you can say more with silence than you can by actually speaking. That's the reason for doing that. And as far as the rest of the records, I just think it's interesting subject matter. I mean, how long can you continue to sing about your girlfriend's red high heel shoes? You know, there has to be something of real substance after a while. You know, I was talking to Alice Cooper a couple of weeks ago about this very thing, and we were both talking about, because he too has returned to his faith, and we both agreed that if you go back and you look at even our early records, our records are laced with a whole concept of what we believe as kids. So we're basically just coming full circle.
Next question.
Here I represent Classic Rock Magazine Russian edition, and I would like to ask a question, just like continue the topic of religion. What do you think about metal fans who idolize musicians like gods? Do you think it's like right or wrong?
You know, I wrote a song on the last album about that very thing. No human being can take that sort of adulation. It killed Elvis, it killed Kurt Cobain, and a whole bunch of guys. No human being is designed to get that much adulation. So that's really what sparked that song, because when you start putting human beings on that sort of a level, it's okay to admire them, but when you put a god-like worship on them, you are then putting them in a place that they can never live up to. And that's not a place where any human being should be.
This is Vesa taking pictures from MTV3 Finland, and my question is, what do you think of YouTube? You have a concert tonight here and tomorrow it's on YouTube.
I think it's really good. When it first started, I think most bands might have been uncomfortable with the idea because they couldn't control it. But believe it or not, we all learned something from the Grateful Dead years ago. The Grateful Dead used to let bands come in and film and record whatever they wanted to do. And the idea of that sharing really increases the viewership. And you can build many more fans than you could have if you were controlling it yourself. So I think for me, I think it's a good idea.
Hello, this is Sasha from Croatia.
Are you in the World Cup?
Unfortunately not this time. You once said, or I once read in some article, that you consider your tour with Iron Maiden in 1986 one of the greatest tours in rock history. What makes you think that?
Well, I don't know if I said rock history, but I meant during the course of our career. But looking back on it, you know, you got to remember we were both managed by the same management company, so it was a real family environment, and both bands had known each other for quite some time. And it was a really, really great situation because both bands were still growing. And there would be times where, you know, we would get bored with each other in the band, and I'd stay with Steve Harris on his bus, and sometimes Nico would come over and stay with Chris Holmes, and it just, you know, it was a very incestuous relationship going on there. But it was great, and I mean, everywhere we were going, it just seemed like the audiences were getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it was really, I look back on it, it was one of the best times of my life.
That's Lloyd from Street Clip TV. You have a really great version of Burn from Deep Purple on your recent record. Was Deep Purple one of your early influences?
Oh yeah, you know, I think for every band that's around today, you know, that they would definitely be a band that would be part of your influence, you know. And it goes to David Coverdale. No, I appreciate what you're saying, and yes, they've been a tremendous influence.
On the live record, Live in the Raw, you recorded the two songs, Manimal and Hard Faster. Is there any chance to get these songs in the studio versions? Were they ever recorded officially?
The only thing we ever did was a demo version of those. And no, they've never been recorded in a studio because the reason that was done is the label came to us and they said, okay, this is a live record, but we want something that you can't get anywhere else. And so we said, all right, well, we have these two. And so we'll put that on there, and everybody seemed to think that was an okay idea.
More questions?
Hi there again. I want to continue my personal interview. So you actually gave me...
Not selfish now.
Yeah. You actually gave me food for thought with your previous answer. So since you know that you're kind of idolized between metal fans around the world, kids and adolescents and whatever, is it possible for you to share with us a really embarrassing moment in your life as a metal singer, something that will make us laugh so that people know that you're a real person and not a god or something? Something, an anecdote from your career.
Well, I don't know if it's just me, but you know, if you could spend 5 minutes on a tour bus with any band and see what they look like when they crawl out of their bunks in the morning, you would see the whole image go just like that, because it's incredible what goes on there. I mean, it's like you think you're back in the 3rd grade again, little guys farting and stuff like that. I mean, it's incredible, you know. So it's like I say, and every band does this. I've never seen one that doesn't. You know?
Your recent CD has a great natural organic sound. Was it recorded analog?
Analog. It's the only way to go. You know what? If you're gonna make an expensive sounding record, there's only one way to do it. You gotta spend the money. And the best thing that I ever did, he was talking about the Headless Children. When we finished making the Headless Children, that was $600,000 US then. And at the end of it, I was standing there, I was holding this little CD in my hand. I'm thinking, this is what you get for $600,000? And I thought, no way. So when we got ready to do the Crimson Idol, I took that money that I would have spent on the record, built the studio, and it was the best thing I ever did.
Hi, I'm Pierre from Headbangers Ballroom Hamburg. I have a question. Your shows in the 80s and 97 was very hard with Blood and Met. And now if I see your shows, I'm too young to see the old shows. Now I don't see blood or anything. Why do you are so serious now?
Well, you know, it's like I was talking about before. I'm at a point where I think that what I'm saying and doing speaks louder now than any of that stuff I did before. And I think with anybody, if you want to go back, like the guy was asking about YouTube, all that stuff is there if you want to see that. But my purpose for being here now is to try to say something to her. I'm trying to, every record that I make, anything I do, I'm trying to make you think. I'm not giving you fast food for the ears. You know, there's other things you can do if you want to see that. I mean, like he was saying, YouTube's full of that if that's what you want to see. But I'm trying to get you to think about who you are, where your life is. Does it mean anything to you? You know, because you can listen to something that maybe I'll do today, and you'll look at it and you'll see it one way. 5 years from now, you're going to see it totally different, because the person you are today is not who you will be in 5 years. Everyone here is a constantly moving equation, and we're all going to see things totally different. So again, I'm not trying to make fast food for the ears. I'm trying to make you think. And if I can do that in just a little bitty way, then to me it makes sense.
Are you still love machine?
What's that?
Are you still love L-O-V-E machine?
You'd have to ask my wife about that.
Well, it's time to wrap it up, so who's got the final question?
Hi.
My name is Sarah. I'm just a fan, and I just wonder if you're gonna sing one of the greatest songs tonight that I know.
Which
Haven't
is?
sung in black.
No, because when we agreed to do this show, one of the things that we said that we would do is music primarily from the first 2 records. So, sorry, you have to come back next time.
Yeah, you have to come back next time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.